So this is part 2 of our Broadhead test. We initially shot everything out to 80 yards outdoors with the Hooter shooter. I also shot them myself through my bow just to get a baseline of everything. And then we took it indoors, and the data that we're sharing with you is our indoor testing was at 70 yards. It was at 69, actually 69 yards. Couldn't quite stretch it out to 70 in this warehouse that we were using. But basically 70 yards indoors with Broadhead, and we tested to see, and we measured the field point accuracy. So how closely was the impact point in relationship to the field tip group, and we also measured how tight of a group the arrows had, or the broadheads had, at 70 yards as well. I think for me personally, it is the most important aspect of a broadhead, because in reality they're all going to do the same job. They're all going to kill. Penetrations is up there for me, but in essence, with today's bows and today's technology and how much kinetic energy we're using, most broadheads are going to get enough penetration with a really well placed shot. So accuracy to me is probably the most important. So this is what when we did our ranking overall, every test had a certain weight, and the long range accuracy is, for us, we came to the conclusion, is the highest ranking, the heaviest weighted of them all. So look at it, each part individually, to help yourself make up your own mind. That way you're not so focused on the total score of each head. But so long range accuracy, so the group size was heaviest, and second heaviest for me was field point accuracy. I like my broadheads to fly the same as my field points. One, just for practice sake, you don't always want to have to shoot broadheads. And if you're going around doing 3D tournaments and this and that and blah, 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 it's much easier just to be able to shoot your field tips and then switch back over to broadheads when you're hunting. So this is part 2 of our broadhead test. Okay. Inch high, but dead center. Okay. Okay. We're gonna get measured against this group right here. This is our control group.
What is it, 70 yards?
Yeah, just under. It's like 68 or something like that. 0.9. Yeah, 0.9. So less than an inch group. But you can see the way that these are.
That they've some kind of contact.
They're contacting. I would say, honestly, this is probably the group. Because if you look, whoops, take the battery cover off. I would say 0.7 actually is probably more accurate, because this one definitely, this is the last arrow. Mm-hmm. See how it tried to hit in between these two right here, and it deflected.
Kicked it out a little bit.
Yeah, so 0.7, almost a half inch, just over a half inch.
One more click there. Oh, let it down. Or did it already catch?
Is it past it? Or
No, there we go, we're good. We just right the center of the black line, the front of the, like maybe daylight.
Okay. Or excuse me, Alien Archery, double bevel is what this is. Perfect. A
looked like it hit the exact opposite side of that last one. The same spot height-wise. Perfect height, right about 4 inches. But I've been excited to try these for a while. Bullseye.
What was that?
Ozkut. The Hooter shooter. I don't know if you can see that down there or not, but a little laser light. We have a dot that we're aiming at, and the laser light gets put on that. So it's about as precise of a hold as you could possibly get. Same release, same everything, same amount of torque every single time. So it really shows the imperfections of your arrows and your broadheads.
Split the two.
Yep. Here, shoot this.
Oh.
Huh? This one is the Schwacker fixed blade. I think it's called a 268. I gotta go back and look. Bullseye, I think.
So this morning, Anthony and I are out here. We're doing the arrow drag test. I'm going to shoot this. I'm not going to use the shooting machine. I'm going to shoot it myself. We're not doing the accuracy type stuff, so it's not really important for me to use the shooting machine. It'll go a lot faster this way. We're basically shooting every broadhead, and we're going to match it against the field points. I just shot every one of the field points, and they're all hitting the same spot. They're all hitting the same speeds and all that stuff. So originally I was going to use the same arrow and move every broadhead back and forth, but I don't think that's necessary. This test should tell us how much the aerodynamics of that arrow is causing, or how much drag that arrow has, or excuse me, that broadhead has on the arrow, and how much speed it loses. And then ultimately later on, when we do the field point accuracy testing, we should see a correlation.
So consequently, one of the other things we noticed, because we did our sound testing at this time, is that the higher the drag, the louder the broadhead as well. So obviously we didn't show you every single shot. I didn't want to bore you to death. That was very painstaking to do that. Setup time for each arrow was about 3 minutes to make sure that there was no torque on the bow, that we were aiming at the very exact same spot. Even with the laser, there's some deviation, and we noticed that early on. So anyway, here's the results. This is the field point accuracy. This is going from worst to best. The northern wide cuts, the group size, and you can see here the field point group size is 0.7 inches, and this is 5.69, so almost 5 inches wider group than the field points, and it goes down. So I'm sure you want to know what the number one was. The top three were the Ramcat was actually sub an inch. But the funny thing about that was, if you look across here, this is the field point accuracy. It was the worst. So they did the impact point, even though the group size was excellent, the impact point was the worst at 5.72 inches below or away from. I think it was below actually the field tips. So tightest group, but conversely, Iron Will's excellent. Really good, well-made broadhead. Pretty impressed with it. And you can see the Schwacker was just behind it by, thousandths of an inch or hundredths of an inch. And that's this is a mechanical, so you would expect that to have shot better than this. Although the Schwacker's wing blades make it basically a 1-inch broadhead in flight. And if you look up here, this is from best to worst. I don't know why I set this up this way. It was just easier for me to organize it. The Valkyrie Jag had the best field point accuracy at 1.125 inches. Cutthroat was number 2. The Extract was number 3. And Schwacker was number 4. And you can see those were really close. I mean, within, tenths of an inch of each other. And, like I said, it goes down and goes through. So, there's that wide cuts again. It wasn't a very good flying broadhead. It was third worst in field point and worse in the group sizing. But this is we're splitting hairs here. Look, until you get to right about here, where you're like 3.5 inches, really, at 70 yards, a 3.5 inch group is pretty damn good. And same thing with the field point accuracy until you get to about 3.5 inches over here, where it starts deviating. And if it's a really good grouping broadhead, like in the case of the Ramcat, you just don't shoot field points and get that thing set up and practice only with the broadhead. But the thing about that is, the Ramcat, that blade is fairly thin, and the more you shoot it, the worse the group becomes after hitting a bag a bunch. So I don't even know if that's an option with that particular broadhead. But with the, Montec wasn't good either way. But with some of these other ones that had good field point good groups and not so great field point accuracy, you could do that. This was the drag test right here. This is the total amount of percentage of drag, so the loss. And this is the percentage over the actual field point. So, and you can see there's a very big correlation. You see that Ramcat Diamondback, which was the worst in field point, had one of the highest drag percentages, second highest. And this continued to correlate. So, it's kind of like we did this as a backup, but just to kind of see how different broadhead designs. Again, we're splitting hairs. This one's reaching the target at 80 yards at 242 feet per second, and it left at 287.
versus one that was good. Let's see, like a Cutthroat. Okay, that was a very high scoring field point accuracy. It leaves at 280, left at 286, and got there at 254. So it's just a cool correlation to see that. So hopefully this gives you some insight as to what you want. This will be up on my blog, so you'll be able to see these results. When I post this, it's going to be with all the results, so you'll be able to see every single phase of right here. This will have all the rankings and all the numbers, and each of the broadheads will have a value associated to it and give you a total ranking, basically.